We are up to page 926. At the bottom, Memareyach and Memareyach on foods. So what was the conclusion? Fegi, is it you? Are you the Balkoida for today? Good.
Yes, it seems like it's me.
If you get tired, I'll take over from you later. All right.
What's wrong with your lighting, Roz?
I don't know, Rabbi, it's dark today. I don't know if it's these down lights are not very successful. Unless you're sitting actually under a downlight, you're not seeing, and they're not in a position where I'm sitting.
Okay, we see you bright and clear.
Oh, thank you.
Bottom of 926, we're going to finish the Melacha of the Memareyach today. And last time I told you that if it comes to smearing peanut butter, I think I said that you should put the peanut butter on the bread, and then you can press the bread so that the peanut butter spreads. We're going to see today that generally there is no isur of Memareyach with foods when they are used as foods. It'll become clear as we go along what I mean by foods when used as foods, as opposed to decorations, as opposed to food used for some functional item instead of putty. But food when they're used as food to be eaten, there's no Isur D'Rabbanan on Memareyach. However, the Mishnah Berurah says that it's best not to smear things like peanut butter. If it's not normally eaten without smearing, don't smear it. So like I said, you should put it on and press it. So we're going to learn today why Chazal did not decree any gzeiros on smoothing foods like they did with other kinds of smoothing. And we'll also learn when smoothing even foods are forbidden when they're not being, when the smearing is not being done for the food aspect, but for the look. Okay, Peggy, go ahead. H.
Okay. Memareyach and Memareyach on foods. The Melacha D'Oraisa on Memareyach does not apply to the preparation of foods. In the Mishkan, Memareyach was part of the tanning process. Tanning Abed is the true form, in its true form is only possible when making items of permanent use, such as non-food hards that are meant to be preserved indefinitely. Preserving foods, although somewhat similar to tanning, is in the sense that both are methods of preserving, is not in the same category as the Melacha D'Oraisa of Ma'abed, only restricted on certain kinds of foods by rabbinic ordinance. See Ma'abed D for further explanation. It therefore follows that none of the melachos of the tanning process, including Memareyach, are applicable on a D'Oraisa level on foods. In fact, smoothing foods on Shabbos is usually permitted. Example, there's nothing wrong with spreading butter, cheese, peanut butter, or other spreads for sandwiches and the like on Shabbos or Yom Tov, and one may do so in an ordinary fashion. However, there are few rabbinic restrictions pertaining to the smoothing of foods. Why are there no specific rabbinic ordinances on foods? Since all edible foods, including peanut butter and other spreads, are fully usable as they are, smearing, smoothing, and spreading are merely forms of preparation and achieve no significant effect upon such foods. This is completely unlike hides that must undergo the smoothing as part of the process of producing a proper finish on the leather, which is a significant change. Because the smoothing of foods is completely dissimilar to the melacha of Madarasa of Memareyach and Memareyach, the sages did not feel compelled to impose a system of rabbinic ordinances with respect to smearing foods.
Let me stop you there. Now you understand what I quoted before from the Mishnah Brura, that if an item like peanut butter is not normally eaten without spreading, then spreading makes it usable. And in that case, it does somewhat resemble the ma'abed, which is making the hide usable by changing it, smoothing it, or removing the hairs or whatever makes it non-usable, and now you've made it usable. So in the case of food, occasionally you have this change which makes it usable as well, if it's never used in lumps or globs, then smearing it makes it usable. So that's why he says that it's better not to smear things like peanut butter, which are not used unless they're smeared. Okay.
Smoothing foods for aesthetic purposes.
Can I, just a moment. How many of you ever eat peanut butter as a I don't know, a glob? No, nobody?
Not
All those
me.
invisible head.
I eat it from a spoon. A lot of people
Sorry?
do. I eat it where you take a spoon and you eat it from a spoon.
Okay. Anybody else?
Nope.
No? No, all
But
right.
Rabbi,
Yeah?
almond butter, there's all different kind of things. There's almond butter, they're all different, they're all the same. People do eat.
People do eat them like
Yeah.
off the spoon.
Yeah.
All right. That's why I'm thinking that in that case, if people do eat them, then smearing them would not make them usable. They're usable even without smearing. So you would not involve ma'abed. So I guess the jury is out. Most of you are saying that you don't eat the peanut butter or almond butter or whatever, cashew butter, without smearing. You don't eat it from the jar on a spoon, in which case the smearing would be problematic. But even the Mishnah Brura says not that it's osur, but tovoi olav brocha, a blessing on your head if you avoid smearing it.
So what about margarine, Rabbi? My husband eats margarine on challah.
Margarine and challah. But then definitely nobody eats margarine in globs.
No.
So smearing it would be making it usable. So there the Mishnah Brura would apply. So you're best off putting it on the bread, on the challah, and then pressing the challah together and then eating it that way rather than smoothing it with a knife.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And Marmite?
Marmite is totally inedible to anyone except Englishmen. So it doesn't classify as food. We're just joking. Who eats Marmite?
You can't get Marmite anywhere in this country anymore. You can't get Marmite and you can't get fish paste.
Fish paste is definitely edible as is.
You can get fish paste. At Sandringham Spa. Fish paste, they make it mahadran.
Really? Okay, good. I'm
Make
running.
fish anchovies.
Okay. Let's carry on.
Okay.
What happened? Why is there a boycott of Marmite? And
I don't think there's a boycott. I just think they're not importing it anymore and they're not making it because there isn't a big enough market. The same's happened with the fish paste. Pix and retro.
I see. Okay. Now
There
we
is
come to using food for non-food purposes or smearing the food, not for the sake of eating, but the smearing, the act of smearing is for the sake of the look. You can eat it as is, as we'll see, egg salad, tuna salad. You can eat it as is, but you smear the mound so that you give it a real good look. You want a chopped liver mountain for the bar mitzvah. So that involves creating a look by smearing. That's the problem. Smoothing food for aesthetic purposes. Carry on, Peggy, please.
There is, however, one specific limitation mentioned by the poskim. The Ramah states that smoothing foods for purely aesthetic purposes should be avoided because the achievement of a desired aesthetic effect is a non-food characteristic and does indeed bear some resemblance to the melacha of Memareyach, i.e. Memareyach. In such cases, there is in fact a firm basis for rabbinic restrictions to be applied. Examples: smoothing the surface of tuna salad, smoothing egg salad, smoothing mashed banana into a decorative shape. Smearing, that's what I do. So, oh gosh, okay. Smearing frosting on the top of a cake with a decorative or aesthetically smooth effect. To simply spread the icing on the cake is permitted if not done merely to beautify the cake. However, making the icing itself is prohibited under Losh. However,
Sorry, taking a liquid and stiffening it, giving it a new consistency by mixing. So that's what one does with kneading, giving the dough a new consistency by means of mixing the liquid and the flour. So that's the malach of losh. So it would apply to making icing as well. By the way, I mentioned last time, I want to remind you that certain salad dressings, which become thick when you add, say, mayonnaise to them, also involve losh, or tuna salad. When you mixed it with mayonnaise, it coagulates into that tuna salad, and that too would be losh, should be done before Shabbos. But here we're talking about smearing it in order to smooth it out and give it a good look. That is not losh. It is, according to the Ramah, it is the melacha of Memareyach, or at least midrabanan. However, please carry on.
However, there's no basis to restrict smearing butter, peanut butter, and other spreads on a sandwich or the like, because any aesthetic effect, whether inevitable or not, is totally not purposeful and therefore meaningless. See also section 2. Okay, similarly,
This
one may use...
Sorry, this is misleading, because when it comes to butter, there's no issue of aesthetic effect, but there is an issue of ma'abed, making it usable by smearing, as I said before. Similarly, carry on.
Similarly, one may use a scoop to spoon out ice cream, even though the ice cream is in the scoop assumes a smooth, round shape, because the smoothing effect is neither needed nor intended. Regarding the reasons why and
Kosev.
Kosef and Bonnet are also not applicable to the use of scoops. See Kosef. Okay. Note: forming designs and patterns on foods may be prohibited because of Kosef. Memareyach with foods for non-food purposes. While the Malacha of Memareyach does not apply to food preparations for reasons explained earlier, food substances can indeed be subject to Memareyach when they are used for non-food purposes. When used in this way, the food fills the role of an item of permanent use and is no different from hides or other non-foods. Smearing a food substance to repair an item. Based on what has been previously stated, one may not plug a crack or leak in a Negelwasser basin or Natilas Yadayim cup with chewing gum or sticky candy, example, toffee.
In case you attempted. Yeah,
Similarly, one may not press chewing gum against orthodontic braces because to do so would fall under Memareyach. Pressing the gum would be forbidden even if the gum was already flattened before Shabbos, because of concern that he will further rub the smoother gum while applying it to the teeth. Smearing butter on one's lips. One may not smear butter or margarine on one's lips to prevent chapping. When used for therapeutic or other non-food purposes, any food substance, whether solid, fat, or butter, is halachically identical to non-foods. Therefore, for this purpose, butter is the same as non-food cream. What about olive oil? Olive oil fit into that category, would it?
Olive oil is liquid.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's no issue with Memareyach at all, except if one never uses olive oil except for healing. I don't mean as opposed to salads, but if one never smears olive oil except for healing, then it would be an issue of refuah on Shabbos. If one uses olive oil or olive oil products generally to smooth the skin, then it would not be a problem.
Examples of Memareyach: lathering with a bar of hard soap, pressing a pliable substance, example, beeswax chewing gum, to the wire edges of dental braces to protect the inside of the mouth from being cut by the sharp wires. 3, smoothing the lead point of a pencil to achieve a heavy and even drawing line when using. Note, a pencil is muktzah and may not be handled on Shabbos. 4, smoothing the tip of children's crayon to allow for easier drawing. No, a crayon is muktzah and may not be handled on Shabbos. 5, sharpening the cutting edge of a knife. This may also be makeh b'patish.
Okay. How much time have we got? Yeah, okay. We'll do the next malacha, which he explains very well at the beginning, so you don't need my introduction. But by the same token, it doesn't have that many applications because the idea of scoring is not a common activity. So we'll learn the few applications. It's a very short chapter. We'll finish it hopefully today. Malacha 30.
M'sarteit scoring, ruling lines. M'sarteit in the Mishkan. Before they can be made into garments, fur and processed hides must be cut to measured sizes and patterns. In the Mishkan, the Elim and Tachash skins also had to be cut in this manner before being sewn together in large coverings. B, the basic premise. To cut accurately and evenly, it is necessary to first score a line in the hides to guide the cutting instrument. Scoring or drawing in this line is the malacha of M'sarteitScoring.
Now, I'll tell you where you see the M'sarteitScoring most clearly. If you look at your mezuzah, you'll notice that the top of each line of writing is scored into the parchment. And that's done in order to write evenly, so that you don't end up going up and down, one letter below, one letter above. So in order to get an even line of writing, the lines are scored on top of the writing, and the right and left side are scored so that you'll begin and end the lines evenly. The sofer will begin and end the line evenly. Hold it up to the light, and you'll see the what's called the shirtut. Shirtut is the noun, the scoring. M'sarteit, I don't know, he pronounces it m'sarteit. But at any rate, that's the verb, to make the scoring. The scoring itself, the lines are shirtut. So you're not allowed to write a Sefer Torah or Tefillin without that scoring, so that it'll come out beautiful and even. There you see it most clearly. The different applications. Please carry on.
The different applications of M'sarteitScoring. However, M'sarteitScoring is not limited to hides and leathers. Making any kind of guideline on any object for the purpose of cutting, tearing, or breaking that object to a specific size or shape is also the malacha of M'sarteitScoring. Therefore, laying a chalked plumb line against a beam or sheet of plywood in order to make a measured cut along that line would be M'sarteitScoring. Ruler lines called setutim are also required when writing a Sefer Torah or mezuzah. Horizontal lines are scored into the parchment before the sofer begins his writing to ensure straight written lines. Making these lines on Shabbos would also be the malacha of M'sarteitScoring. D, the M'sarteitScoring on foods. The malacha of M'sarteitScoring is not applicable on foods. As explained earlier in the malacha of Memareyach, none of the malachas of the tanning process are applicable to foods. Example, it is permitted to score lines on the icing of a cake to measure the size of each size to be cut. It may further be reasoned that scoring guidelines on foods is not M'sarteitScoring because the act of M'sarteitScoring must be part of a sequence of other related malachas. Hence, the guideline must be a preparation for either the malacha of M'sarteitScoring or the malacha of kosef, writing. Example, the custom of scoring the challah before reciting the bracha and cutting is not M'sarteitScoring. Similarly, scoring an orange peel to enable peeling along the scored lines or scoring lines on a cake to enable one to cut equal size pieces is not restricted by the malacha of M'sarteitScoring. There are no rabbinic restrictions on M'sarteitScoring on foods for the same reasons that smoothing foods is not restricted under Memareyach. See M'sarteitScoring and kosef, the difference. Drawing ruler lines, M'sarteitScoring, should be not confused with the malacha of kosef. The reason, the malacha of kosef includes only the making of letters or meaningful symbols and designs that convey some message. A ruler line, M'sarteitScoring, does none of these. unintentional or meaningless lines. M'sarteit, by definition, is only possible with lines or marks made intentionally for the purpose of guiding, to write or draw, or for the purpose of measured cutting. However, lines or marks made for no purpose at all are not even remotely related to m'sarteit. Example, folding the corner of a page of a book to serve as a bookmark is permitted because the fold mark is not intended as any guideline for cutting or the like. Merely folding a page or sheet of paper without forming any meaningful shape, such as a boat, hat, etc., does not involve m'sarteit or any other malacha. Nevertheless, one should not score a line or mark on the page of a sefer or book as a page reminder or to help remember a necessary correction, because this is considered a possible form of kosef. Right.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yes.
What about if kids want to play hopscotch? So they take their shoe and they draw squares or something in the ground, in the earth. Is
Problem
that considered?
already. Problem. To dig into the earth with your shoe is a malacha. Never mind m'sarteit, but it's a chodesh. Any furrow in the ground is the
Rabbi
malacha.
Wineberg, I have to go out of here and I'll come back again because a phone call disturbed the sound.
Okay. As a matter of fact, my father, Olav Sholem, was walking home from 770 with my brother, and they observed the Rebbe's doctor, Dr. Zeligson. Dr. Zeligson, he was famous for the lives that he saved in Shanghai when there was an outbreak of, forget what it was.
I'm back. I'm back.
Oh, okay. In any case, he's walking and children, Goyish children, were playing what we call skelly, where you draw chalk lines in the pavement and you have to hit a bottle cap from one box to another cap, to another box according to pre-designated rules. And Dr. Zeligson is very careful to circumvent. Yeah. And my father says to my brother, look at Yiddish Shamayim. Look how careful he is not to walk anywhere near those chalk lines, because it would be moichek, not memachek, but moichek, erasing.
Erasing.
Making a furrow in the ground with your shoe is already a problem. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why we don't play soccer, certainly not on the ground, is for the concern that you will come to draw lines in the ground with your foot in order to mark the point from which you kick or whatever purpose that you have there. So in order not to come to do those lines, we don't play soccer at all on the ground. There are other concerns as well. You might smooth the ground, which would also be chodesh or boine. But it's already a problem just making the line, not for any purpose, but the line itself is the problem in the ground. Okay.
Folding a paper napkin. Paper napkins may not be folded to create items or replicas of items. Example, a house, hat, boat, etc. However, one may merely fold paper napkins in half or in quarters to give them a more attractive appearance. Doing this is neither m'sarteit or any other melacha. Wrinkling paper, foil, etc. Crumbling up a sheet of paper, foil, used paper bag, etc. Example, to discard is not m'sarteit because the resulting wrinkles and lines are not made for any purpose and are in fact meaningless. Therefore, doing so does not transgress any melacha and is permitted. C. Flattening a folded or wrinkled paper. One is permitted to flatten out the folded paper of a book or to smooth out a wrinkled paper bag or other wrinkled paper on Shabbos or Yom Tov, provided that the book or paper is not muktzah. This is because flattening the folded or wrinkled paper does not entail any melacha. This is not considered makkah b'patish because pages and papers are commonly brought to a wrinkled state during their course of use. The wrinkled paper is therefore not considered broken. See also makkah b'patish. However, it is
Let me stop you for a minute, ladies. When would paper be muktzah? Don't all shout at once.
No, if it's not
fire.
needed.
If
it's not
Raj,
needed.
you're breaking up.
If it's not needed for Shabbos, paper.
By itself, that wouldn't make it muktzah. Remember, you have to think what is wrong with it. Remember, muktzah is never by itself the issue. It becomes muktzah because of some other issue, some other melacha that could be done. Anybody? When would paper be muktzah?
When you move it, Rabbi. If you move
that is the
something,
definition of muktzah, moving it. But
When
in which case would the paper be muktzah and forbidden to be moved?
if there's
when you don't need it.
if there's
When you
candles,
Okay,
there's
that's
candles.
what Raj said. I asked, what's wrong if you don't need the paper? If you don't need it.
Perhaps you
It's
stand a
not
candle.
easy.
Candles on a if you stand a candle on a paper plate.
So it's not because it's paper, but a bad idea anyhow. Candle on a paper plate.
Yeah.
All right, but then it's muktzah because it serves as the base for the candle. For the flame.
The process.
Paper is muktzah if it's for writing.
Oh, well, we wouldn't write
And
the pen.
that's the purpose of the paper, and you're of course not going to write on Shabbos, and you don't use the paper for wrapping herring. It's meant for writing, so it becomes muktzah. Okay?
Or for the printer paper.
Or for
The printer.
printer paper. Okay, that's another form of writing. Yeah, right. However, it's questionable. Please carry on.
However, it is questionable whether one may flatten out a photograph or an important document that became folded or wrinkled, as these items are not meant to be wrinkled or bent during ordinary use. Important documents are also muktzah. Similarly, one may not flatten out a metal blech that became bent out of shape. These cases could be comparable to a needle or the stem of eyeglasses that became bent out of shape and are considered broken. Repairing an item is makkah b'patish. Examples of m'sarteit. 1, drawing a line on paper to cut along it. 2, making connecting dots on paper to draw along them. 3, folding a sheet of paper in order to tear it along the fold. 4, scoring a line around a newspaper item with one's fingernail to cut along after Shabbos. If one does not intend to cut along the line, scoring with one's nail is nevertheless prohibited under Kosov because the line in this case serves as a symbol of marking the particular news item. Note, see Kosov chapter 3, 1J regarding the question of whether reading newspapers are permitted today.
Okay, because of all the commercial items in the newspaper, the advertising, etc. And Bechlal, the stuff in the newspaper doesn't contribute to Oinik Shabbos.
So that means you can't read the Jewish report.
No, you can.
Jewish report, if you read the Divrei Torah, and the good news is if there's any, and you ignore the advertising, and you don't normally read it for the advertising, then yes. But do me a favor, there's so many better things to read than the Jewish report. I don't know if you should read it on Wednesday.
That's true.
The Schmutzblatt.
Okay, let's stop and go for questions. Before we do, I want to remind you that next week, Mitchum, I'll be away. Shoshana asks, what book are we learning from? So welcome, Shoshana. And we're learning from volume 3 of the 39 Melochas.
Thank you.
Rabbi,
Okay.
we're almost done.
Question.
We've got one more malacha to do. Do we then go on to, is there a Gimel, is there a
Volume
Dalet?
4. Yes, there's a volume 4.
Volume 4, okay.
Questions. Rabbi, I have a question. Good morning. We are fire burners in my family. My son has a fireplace and I have a fireplace. If you start a fire before Shabbos and it's really going okay, and then the pieces of wood start to, well, they need more tinder. You need more tinder to catch the heavy logs. Are you allowed to open the vent of the fireplace or just open the door a little bit so that air can come in and fire and flame the fire? Can one do that, or is it considered? Israel thought maybe it would be muktzah, but I don't know if it's muktzah because you're not actually moving the fireplace.
It's worse than muktzah. You're causing it to burn better. That's the purpose of opening it.
Combustion.
Right. Yeah, mavir, lighting a fire or making a fire burn better is also. You're talking about on Shabbos.
Yeah, just opening the door of the fireplace a little bit, just to give it that bit of air. Or for that matter, closing the door.
Okay. You can close the door if the smell or the smoke coming from the fireplace is bothering you. But you don't close it in order to improve the flame. That's part of the malacha of mavir, or sometimes mechabe, extinguishing. That's what we have a Shabbos goy for. The original Shabbos goy was there in order to keep the fire going on Shabbos, especially in European countries where during the winter it was a necessity. So you had the Shabbos goy. And the Shabbos goy was given some of the Shabbos cholent as a reward for his work. So that's okay. Because as you remember, Hakoil Cholim Eitzel Hatzino, everybody is considered sick with respect to cold. If they're not sick, they can get sick. So you're allowed to use the Shabbos goy for that. So you call a goy in order to do whatever is necessary to keep the fire going on a cold day, but a yid should not do it. Not a matter of muktzah. Because it's also because it's a malacha, therefore anything that is used for it becomes muktzah. as I've told you many times, muktzah is always a consequence of a malacha, not the reason to forbid anything. Once something is forbidden, the object with which the Easter is done becomes muktzah.
Thanks, Rabbi.
You were right about one thing, that opening and closing the door per se is not forbidden because of muktzah. So, for example, if the door is swung open, the fire is out already. Well, you don't need the fire. You're not going to improve the fire by opening and closing. So it's a door and it's attached already. So it's not muktzah.
Thank you.
Questions?
Mm.
All right. Very nice. We have all the answers. I thought we don't have the answers until Mashiach comes. We still have big questions.
Question.
So may the Eibishter help us with all the answers.
Thank you, Rabbi. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
But
Amen.
Hashem, in 2 weeks, we'll learn the next Malacha, and that will conclude the volume, and we'll move on in Mitzvah Hashem to the next volume, volume 4. So please see that you have the next volume so we don't get stuck. Okay?
Thank
Have
you,
a great
Rabbi.
day. Have a great week. Stay warm.
Like
Thank
us.
you, Rabbi.
Have a good trip.
Thank you.
Rabbi, are we learning tomorrow night?
Yes, Mitzvah Hashem.
Thank you. Okay. Be well. Thank you.